Gaming's changed a fair bit over the years, hasn't it? It's not the same 8-bit graphics that some of us may have grown up on. It's not even the same as what it was back in the 70s when it was even first created. The idea of Pong, two paddles. Who would have thought that would turn into what we have nowadays? I mean, there's no way they could have looked at that and gone, this will be big one day. They just couldn't have. I mean, it's insane the growth that it's had within the space of 50 years. The advancements in technology, how the styles have changed. It's impressive, to say the least. And it's a fun pastime, right? I mean, let's be honest, who doesn't love coming home from work? You have a gaming session with friends, you've been dealing with whatever stress you've been having to do at work, whatever stress you had at work, and you get to come home and you get to just blow off some steam, mess about, have a few laughs. There's nothing bad about it. But it seems like companies are out of ideas a little bit. Or, they've got a lot of ideas if it involves getting our money. I mean, look at Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto has been the same game across 3 generations of platform. Rockstar have teased maybe a new one. They've remastered some of the old ones to horrifying results. But they have made more money than they know what to do with. They have, I'm sure, a swimming pool filled with gold that they make use of from the revenue that they generate in all the microtransactions that they have in Grand Theft Auto Online. And they're not alone. Don't get me wrong. Companies have loads of ideas for making money out of you. I mean, if it's not skins for characters, then it's loot boxes, could be battle passes, or maybe it's like a tiny DLC that doesn't add anything to the game, but still seems like a good idea. I mean, they produce unfinished, unpolished games nowadays that they promise to fix later. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Only to also be working on the next game, which is also the same game you're currently playing, just in a year. Maybe shinier though. But go back around 20 years, because I'm that old and I can do that. We're going to start with Call of Duty. It's a franchise you know. It's a franchise everyone knows, even if you don't play it and you aren't a fan of it. It's one that exists everywhere, especially around this time of year where they're trying to get you hyped to buy the next one. They're on their knees, pleading with you to not give up on them. They'll do better. They'll come back and love you. They didn't mean to be as bad last time. But when Call of Duty came out in 2003, it focused on the Second World War. It was a new idea. You had Medal of Honor that was kind of doing the same thing, but for the Call of Duty, the campaign revolved around squads, and then you had your multiplayer, and it was different. And I still remember the Normandy level after all these years. I mean, it was intense, it was difficult, but it filled you with excitement trying to push through that beachhead. As you had machine gun fire going off and explosions going around, you could see other soldiers being killed around you, which gave you the idea of being in this battlefield, in this really horrific battle sequence. It's something that's kind of been missing from the franchise, perhaps with the exception of 2009 Modern Warfare 2's campaign. I mean, we talked about this in stream yesterday. If you haven't experienced, if you weren't there when Modern Warfare 2 came out, you may know about the pain of Shepard's betrayal, but you didn't experience it. You weren't there at the time. When we sat down and we played that, there was no indication that anything was going to happen, and then it just did at the end, and we were not prepared. It's why it's such a big thing, and when they remastered it, it didn't have the same effect because we, the older players, already knew what was happening. It was just a case of how are you going to make it different. We already knew what was coming. It's the same experience as like Star Wars. You can't recapture that magic from that very first scene in A New Hope when the Star Destroyer goes overhead. It was a huge ship that had never been done in cinema before, and it made audiences go, oh my god. And you can't grasp that again. You can't get that same excitement back. And with Call of Duty, the developers have been making games for 20 years. And it's apparent nowadays they're running out of ideas. And now they're selling all the maps for AAA prices. They're putting a price tag on nostalgia and hoping that's enough for you. It might be, but that is a different topic for another day. But it's unfair to claim that the 4 developers of Infinity Ward, Treyarch, Sledgehammer, and Raven are unique in this idea. I mean, the biggest culprit for many of gaming's issues lies with the big bad of the gaming industry. And I'm sure you know who that is without me even saying their name. Because it's always the studio that gets listed when it comes to these things. And that is, of course, EA.
Shh! You want to get sued?
They have for years boosted annual games to sports fans. FIFA, NHL, and Madden. And every year, FIFA fans say the game is terrible. The game is trash. And the next year they go out and buy it. I assume NHL and Madden fans are the same. Each sets you back the customary £60, $70 price tag, but still heavily pushes those pay-to-win mechanics in the Ultimate Team modes, which is also where they focus their attention. I used to play the FIFA games because I enjoy football. And the manager mode was a lot of fun, but each year the only thing was a roster update. They didn't add any new mechanics. There was new stuff in Ultimate Team though. New ways to unlock packs, or you can just spend it because it's easier. New events, new modes, this, that, and the next thing. Adding in new icons to packs that you can get to boost your team. But by the way, next year when you buy a new game, you'll have to start your team again, which means that's another dose of money we'll get in because you'll all play it. And this kind of thing, again, we've talked about it in previous videos, does come back to content creators a little bit, are part of the problem. Because it's such a competitive thing, you want to be making content for people. And sometimes the content is, let me sit and open packs and you'll get my reaction. I'll open these packs, maybe I'll get someone good, maybe I won't. But they're still dropping thousands of pounds on a stream opening these packs, which encourages other people to do it. And if EA is making the money, then why are they going to change their system? Going back to the problem that EA have caused, a lot of it is that they bought up smaller studios to make games for them, including BioWare. You know, BioWare was very strong, good developer, trusted developer when it came to RPGs. And they made them make Anthem. And we know how that went. They bought up DICE. And for a while that did do okay for them. But we all know how Battlefield 2042 went. It was a horrible, horrible mess. Maxi, one of the developers of, or the main developers of The Sims back in the day, which at the time was one of the highest selling PC games of all time. Probably still is if you count the entire franchise. But my god, have you seen the decline in each game? The Sims started with this interesting, different concept of life simulator. And people got sadistic fast. Like, you people have issues, by the way. Anyway, but as you got to The Sims 2, they fleshed out a little bit. They added in more things that you can do. Give the Sims more life goals and whatnot. It added more depth to the game. And there was expansions. That's okay. It added sizable stuff to it. And that was back in the day where you had to have like 15 discs to be able to play something, because there wasn't enough data that you could put onto it. But The Sims 3 then started getting very money grabbing. Now I have The Sims 3. I've actually put a lot of hours into it. I have fun playing it. But that game came out in 2009. And all those expansions are still full price on Steam from 2009. That game, if you decide that you want The Sims, you decide that you want to go back and play it, that game and all of its DLCs will set you back an eye-watering, because that is the only way to describe it, £341 for a game that came out in 2009. And then they decided that within that game, there was also the microtransactions. They decided that the backlash from the microtransactions was worthy of perhaps changing come The Sims 4. Now we should put the player first. So they simplified the game and kept the microtransactions in because obviously that's what we all wanted. Again, a tangent. Back to studios that they bought. They also bought the Criterion Games studio, which was known for several of the Need for Speed games, including Need for Speed Most Wanted, which is regarded as one of the best Need for Speed games, perhaps only behind or on a par with Need for Speed Underground 2, the game that is constantly screamed for a remaster. But they'll never do because they haven't figured out a way to insert microtransactions into an old game. They also bought Full Circle, who are the Skate developers. They bought Respawn, who are the developers behind the money machine of Apex. And, fuck Titanfall, Apex is our only focus now. And that's the list of studios that's still doing things for them. There's, of course, out the back of the studios, the pit of former developers they used to use. And these include several closed BioWare officers. The ones responsible for Mass Effect and Dragon Age, they're gone. They've closed them. They bought Codemasters, who were a well-known British one who did a lot of stuff. You'll be able to look them up and you'll recognise several games that they made. And they merged them with Criterion. They purchased Pandemic Studios in 2007 and closed them 2 years later. And if you don't know who Pandemic Studios are, you do. The likelihood is you saw their icon on all manner of games. It's the yellow square with the gas mask. I'm going to put it here. You're going to fucking see it. But they were responsible for titles like the original Star Wars Battlefronts 1 and 2. I know I'm not alone in spending hours playing that game, both offline and in multiplayer. Destroy All Humans, ridiculous series. Completely different idea, off the wall. Amazing. The Mercenary series, and they decided to take Star Wars Battlefront and then turn it into Lord of the Rings with Lord of the Rings Conquest. It was just a reskinned version of that, but it was a pretty cool idea. And the one that hurts me the most, and I mean genuinely hurts, me and my dad still talk about this, is the closure of Westwood Studios. This was a game studio that was based out of Las Vegas and created, dare I say, pioneered the real-time strategy genre, especially at the time. It was a series that was still coming out, and they just created some phenomenal titles with the creation of the Dune series. They had Dune 2000, Emperor Battle for Dune later on. They had a game similar to Diablo called Nox, much more light-hearted. It was a very, very solid game, if I'm being honest. It was a lot of fun, spent a lot of time playing that. But the strategy one, the one that set them apart, was the Command & Conquer and the Red Alert series. This was a company that was responsible for a great deal of the early hours of my gaming career. And they got bought by EA in 98, and they got closed in 2003. EA did attempt to continue on the franchise. They created Red Alert 3, which was actually okay. They created, interestingly enough, Command & Conquer 3 Tiberium Wars, where they tried to get it more console friendly at the detriment of PC players. It was okay, but it had a mixed reception because of that. And then they created Tiberium Twilight, which is the fourth game in the series, and killed it off entirely because it sucked that badly. Good job. Great fucking job. Many studios buy up smaller ones. I mean, it's where you get a lot of talent, a lot of the properties that could be the next big thing. And to many of you, that might not seem out of place because, well, you're used to it now. It's kind of common practice. But go back a few years and, well, it wasn't. It was common practice for a smaller studio to reach out to someone who had, well, reach. They had the means to turn around and go, can you get our game out to a bigger audience? Yes, we can, and we'll take a cut of it. Fair enough. But that was it. But they never owned them. It was a mutual partnership. Nowadays, you've got the likes of EA, Microsoft, Sony, just buying up anyone who looks like they're going to produce a decent game.
I claim this planet in the name of the Earth.
I claim this planet in the name of Mars. Isn't that lovely?
And then monetizing the shit out of it. And it's not great. It feels like it's stripping the soul of gaming away. And what it leads to is a lack of variety, passion, excitement that you just don't get anymore. I mean, it's like nowadays gaming industry, the gaming studios who buy up all these little ones and then figure out whatever ways they can squeeze extra money out of us. It's like they make fast food games, you know? Fast food's okay every so often. Yeah, no, you don't mind swinging through a little burger joint, get some burger chips. That's you. Alright, that'll do for dinner. You might not feel great afterwards, but it'll do at the time. But what if you were having that for every meal? All day. Every day. That's what it's come to now. And that's not what it should be. Go back to the early 2000s, you had all those developers who grew up on this new thing, this new exciting thing that was like a tiny amount of data on a cartridge, but it was still new and it was still exciting. And they grew up with that, and they grew up with their ideas of, what if I could do this with a game? What if I could create this? What if I could do this? What if I could do this thing in space? What if I could create this kind of shooter? And it led to excitement, it led to passion that was evident in their games because they discovered something new and could then make it as they got older. I mean, you're talking about guys that were playing on like Spectrums and Atari gaming systems, like proper primitive stuff compared to what we have nowadays. But they wanted to share their ideas. I mean, you look at the early years of Raven Software, right? We've mentioned them earlier with Call of Duty stuff. They were responsible for the Jedi Outcast series, which even to this day is still regarded as having some of the best lightsaber mechanics in any Star Wars game. And I mean of any Star Wars game. There's been a lot of Star Wars games, and these ones are still the ones that have the best. And you're talking this game from like 2003 and 2005 or something like that. You got LucasArts, who produced Republic Commando, which created a squad-based shooter out of the Clone Wars era, before the Clone Wars cartoon was even a thing. Like, it was and still is an incredible game that is crying out for a remaster or a sequel. It's so crying out for a sequel. And then you've got The Sims from Maxim, what the game used to be to what it is now. You had Bungie with Halo. Like, I'm not even that big of a Halo fan. I didn't grow up with a console. But Steve, for those of you who haven't joined our stream before, that we do on here on YouTube, Steve's one of our mods. He's the only one that goes by his actual name. He's a huge Halo nerd, proper Halo nerd. And like Halo 3 was peak multiplayer. ODST was like peak campaign. And that was a small team in Bungie who sold it to Microsoft, who gave it to 343, who had everything there to continue the franchise and can't. Why? They've got literally everything there in front of them, but they can't do it because they don't have the passion for it. They've got a game that they're trying to figure out how they can make the most money out of it. Bungie wanted to make the best game for you, the gamer. And there's a big difference between the two. 343 can never match Bungie's record because they're not going about it for the right reason. And then of course you have BioWare with the Knights of the Republic series, which is arguably one of the best Star Wars games and one of the best RPGs ever written, ever made. Both of them are. 2 was a little bit more rushed, but both games overall are just fucking spectacular. I can't stress this enough. They are amazing games. Even back at the start of the early 2000s, Infinity Ward was still creating good Call of Duty games. It was an early series. They had the ideas. They were still doing well with it. But again, it comes back to back then, there was passion and excitement from making games. Now it seems like there's passion and excitement to see what ways they can get more money out of you. That's what's missing from gaming nowadays. It's that passion, it's that excitement. It's why indie studios can produce such good things, because it's usually like a guy, one person, making Hollow Knight, making RimWorld, making Stardew Valley, making For Those Who Are About to Die. You've got one person who has this idea in their head and they're making this incredible game that they want to share with you. Whilst AAA studios, the big ones, are trying to just make as much money as they humanly can. But it means that the younger generation of gamers, you're growing up with that mindset first. We grew up playing passion projects. People who were excited to share whatever it was, to nerd out with each other. You're getting to play corporate bullshit rammed down your throat, hoping that you can make money out of crossovers, licensing with music for little dances, this skin or that skin that doesn't make sense with whatever you're playing, loot boxes shoved down your throat, cosmetics that have no bearing on the game. That's what you're getting. And because that's what you're getting the fast food version of gaming. It means that you're missing out on the experimental stuff that we maybe got. It might have sucked, but by God, were they willing to try it. And it means that as you grow up, future game developers, you're getting exposed to subpar inspiration. That means the future of gaming doesn't look great as long as it's money first mentality. And that, my friends, is why the early 2000s is the peak of gaming. It got that sweet spot of gaming starting and people being excited for it before corporations got involved, before shareholders got involved, demanding things be released when they're not ready because it meant money, monetizing it in the most extreme way possible to squeeze every ounce of money out of your wallet, and to its decline as to what it is now. It was that sweet spot in between, and until it recovers to that point, gaming is going to be average at best. And I have mixed feelings about it. I mean, I'm both very grateful to have played through it, to have played through that period, but also a little bit sad that we didn't really appreciate it for what it was. The good old days of coming home from school, sitting down and jumping on a game with a friend, split screen co-op, or getting up on a Saturday morning, switching it on and having a few games with other people who are doing the same thing. Like, there was no extra money. You'd all bought the game, you're all just playing it for fun. There was no competitiveness, there was no you should be getting this skin, there was none of that. And it made it fun for everyone. But we didn't know what we had at the time. And I guess it goes to show the whole, you don't really appreciate what you have until it's gone.